Hi guys, my name is Mo and this is Casey on Mo Sports. Today I'll be covering the National League Central. Let's first start off with the Cincinnati Reds. At first base we got Joey Votto. At second base we got Brandon Phillips. Third base we got Todd Frazier. Shortstop we got Zach Cozart. In left field we got Ryan Ludwig. In center field we got Shin-Soo Choo. In right field they got Jay Bruce. And catcher they got Ryan Hannigan. For the starting rotation, at number 1 we got Johnny Cueto, who in 33 starts went 19-9, 2.78 ERA and 170 strikeouts. At number 2 we got Bronson Arroyo, who in 32 starts went 12-10, 3.74 ERA and 129 strikeouts. At number 3 we got Matt Latos, who in 33 starts went 14-4, 3.48 ERA and 185 strikeouts. At number 4 we got Homer Bailey, who in 33 starts went 13-10, 3.68 ERA and 168 strikeouts. At number 5 we got Mike Leake, who in 30 starts went 8-9, 4.58 ERA and 116 strikeouts. And at number 6 we got Aroldis Chapman, who served as the closer last season, who appeared in 68 games, went 5-5, 1.51 ERA, 122 strikeouts, had 38 saves and 43 save opportunities. And I think if he does make the starting rotation this season, I think he'll be a really solid starter. I mean, I know for the longest time he's been wanting to be a starter, but the Reds would just keep, for some reason, kept putting him in the bullpen instead. So now we can finally see if he is worthy to be a starting pitcher or not. As for the bullpen, the new closer is Jonathan Broxton, who they acquired from the Royals last season. And he appeared in 60 games, went 4-5, had a 2.48 ERA, 45 strikeouts, 27 saves, and 33 save opportunities. So there he put up some solid numbers and definitely bounced back from having all those injuries in the past. So now he's looking like how he looked when he was with the Dodgers. And also wanted to point out the setup guy, Sean Marshall, who in 73 games went 5-5, 2.51 ERA, 74 strikeouts, had 9 saves and 13 save opportunities. And also wanted to point out that the Reds do have depth in their relief or in their bullpen. They have about 10 guys, so it's always good to have depth in your pitching. So, you know, whether you get injuries, you always have another guy to rely on. Next up, I'll be covering the Pittsburgh Pirates. At first base, they got Garrett Jones. Second base, Neil Walker. Third base, Pedro Alvarez. And shortstop, they got Clint Barmas. And left field, they got Starling Marte. And center fielder, they got the all-star Andrew McCutchen. And right field, they got Travis Snyder. And catcher, they got Russell Martin. In their starting rotation, at number 1, they got A.J. Burnett, who just came off a really good season. Had 31 starts, went 16-10, 3.51 ERA, and 180 strikeouts. At number 2, they got James McDonald, who he appeared in 30 games, had 29 starts, went 12-8, 4.21 ERA, and 151 strikeouts. At number 3, they got Wandy Rodriguez. He appeared in 34 games, had 33 starts, went 12-13, 3.76 ERA, and 139 strikeouts. At number 4, they got Jeff Locke, who appeared in 8 games last season, had 6 starts, went 1-3, 5.50 ERA, and 34 strikeouts. At number 5, they got Jeff Karstens, who appeared in 19 games last season, had 15 starts, went 5-4, 3.97 ERA, and 66 strikeouts. And at number 6, I threw in Francisco Liriano, who they got from free agency, who pitched for the Minnesota Twins last season. He appeared in 34 games last season, had 28 starts, went 6-12, 5.34 ERA, and 167 strikeouts. They have 8 guys in the bullpen, and I wanted to point out their new closer, Jason Grilli, who appeared in 64 games, went 1-6, 2.91 ERA, 90 strikeouts, 2 saves, and 5 save opportunities. So we'll see what he could do at closer, since now he just received that position this season. And next I'll be covering the Chicago Cubs. At first base, we got Anthony Rizzo. At second base, we got Darwin Barney. At third base, they got Ian Stewart. At shortstop, they got Starlin Castro. In left field, they got Alfonso Soriano. In center field, they got David DeJesus. In right field, they got Nate Shireholtz. And also threw on Scott Harrison because I heard that they're both going to be switching off in right field. And at catcher, they got Wellington Castillo. For their starting rotation, they do not have Ryan Dempster anymore. He got signed by the Red Sox. So their new number one is Jeff Samardzija, who in 28 starts last season went 9-13, 3.81 ERA, and 180 strikeouts. And number two, they got Matt Garza, who had 18 starts last season, went 5-7, 3.91 ERA, and 96 strikeouts. At number three, they got Edwin Jackson, who had 31 starts, went 10-11, 4.03 ERA, and 168 strikeouts. At number four, they got Scott Baker. He did not play in 2012, but his career numbers, he appeared in 163 games, 159 starts, 63-48, 4.15 ERA, and 770 strikeouts. So he definitely has solid numbers, and I do think that he could be a pretty solid number 4 or 5 guy in the rotation, especially because he's a veteran. So we'll see how he'll bounce back from not playing at all in 2012. At number 5, they got Scott Feldman. And he appeared in 29 games last season, had 21 starts, went 6-11, 5.09 ERA, and 96 strikeouts. And at number 6, they got Travis Wood, who in 26 starts went 6-13, 4.27 ERA, and 119 strikeouts. So they have a lot of potential, and they're still developing as a team. And in their rotation, they have 10 guys. So pitching depth, like I said, is always good for a team. So, and they definitely have that, and I think they'll be short-term contenders. So we'll see how well they'll do by the end of the season. And for their closer, they have Carlos Marmol, who appeared in 61 games last season, went 3-3, 3.42 ERA, 72 strikeouts, 20 saves, and 23 save opportunities. And their new acquired setup guy, Keiji Fujikawa. I don't know his numbers. They didn't post up his numbers on MLB.com. But so far in spring training, he appeared in 2 games, pitched for 2 innings, had 3 strikeouts, and has a 0.00 ERA. So far he's shown pretty good potential in spring training, and he might be able to carry that on throughout the season. Now I'm going to be talking about the St. Louis Cardinals, who are the former World Series champs, who won it like 11 times. So second all time behind the Yankees. So that's really good. Now at first base they got Alan Craig. Second base they got Daniel Descalso. At third base they got David Freese. At shortstop they got Rafael Furcal. In left field they got Matt Holliday. In center field they got John Jay. In right field, they got Carlos Beltran, and at catcher, they got Yadier Molina. For their starting rotation, at number 1, they got Adam Wainwright, who in 32 starts went 14-13, 3.94 ERA, and 184 strikeouts. At number 2, they got Chris Carpenter, who last season missed most of last season, only had 3 starts, went 0-2, 3.71 ERA, and 12 strikeouts. And I believe he still is injured till now, so we'll see how long or how long they'll keep him out of the season. Number 3, they got Jake Westbrook, who in 28 starts went 13-11, 3.97 ERA, and 106 strikeouts. And number 4, they got Lance Lynn, who appeared in 35 games, had 29 starts, 18-7, 3.78 ERA, and 180 strikeouts. And number 5, they got Jamie Garcia, who had 20 starts, went 7-7, 3.92 ERA, and 98 strikeouts. And number 6, they got Shelby Miller, who in 6 games had only 1 start, went 1-0, 1.32 ERA, and 16 strikeouts. And you got to remember that they don't have Kyle Loesch anymore, and he hasn't been signed by any team yet. So I highly doubt he'll re-sign with the Cardinals unless they send him a contract. And so they're going to probably have to rely on Shelby Miller to replace Chris Carpenter until he comes back. And again, just like many other teams, they have pitching depth in the rotation or in the bullpen. So we'll see how that will play out. Their closer, Jason Mott, who appeared in 67 games last season, went 4-5, 2.75 ERA, 86 strikeouts, had 42 saves and 49 save opportunities. So he put up some pretty solid numbers. So we'll see how well they'll do this season with their injuries and the loss of Kyle Loesch and stuff. So we'll just have to see how that'll play out. And plus, they don't have Chris Carpenter for part of the season. And lastly, the Milwaukee Brewers. At first base, you got Corey Hart, who is injured right now, but he will be back by somewhere in either April or May. That's what I've heard. So he'll miss all of spring training, and he'll be rehabbing to make his return. At second base, they got Ricky Weeks. At third base, they got Aramis Ramirez. At shortstop, they got Gene Segura. And left field, they got Ryan Braun. In center field, they got Carlos Gomez. In right field, they got Norichika Aoki. And at catcher, they got Jonathan Lucroy. For their starting rotation, they do not have, just to let you guys know, they don't have Zach Greinke anymore, and he's been gone for they traded him off midway through the season last year. So their new number one is Giovanni Gallardo, who in 33 starts went 16-9, 3.66 ERA, and 204 strikeouts. So that's some very solid numbers there as a number one starter. At number two, they got Marco Estrada, who in 29 games had 23 starts, 5-7, 3.64 ERA, and 143 strikeouts. At number three, they got Willie Peralta, who appeared in 6 games, 5 starts, 2-1, 2.48 ERA, and 23 strikeouts. At number four, they got Mike Fears, who appeared in 23 games, had 22 starts, 9-10, 3.74 ERA, and 135 strikeouts. At number five, we got Mark Rogers, who appeared in he had 7 games that he started, went 3-1, 3.92 ERA, and 41 strikeouts. And number 6 got Chris Narveson, who only had 2 starts last season, went 1-1, 7.00 ERA, and 5 strikeouts. Now, if you look at Narveson's past season, he did very good in 2010 and 2011. So, but didn't really play much in 2012. So we'll see if he'll get a second chance with the Brewers. Now, if you look at the rotation, they don't have very many great starters. So, except for Gallardo, pretty much. I mean, they don't have Sean Markham anymore. No Zach Greinke. So, or what did I say? Sean Markham. He plays for the Mets. Well, he plays for the Mets. But yeah, anyways. So yeah, they definitely have a lot to prove, and they're still developing, and they definitely don't have very much pitching depth, so that could affect them throughout the season. And I just want to point out their closer, John Axford, who in 65 games went 5-8, 4.67 ERA, 93 strikeouts, had 35 save and 44 save opportunities. So they definitely need to, they're definitely developing and definitely don't have very many big-name guys on their team anymore. So definitely in a developing state right now. So time to rank them. Number one, I got the Cincinnati Reds. I mean, they got the offense now, with the addition of Shin-Soo Choo, who replaced Drew Stubbs. And Jay Bruce, Joey Votto, Brandon Phillips, all good hitters. And Todd Frazier and Zach Kozar starting to show some promise, So definitely they're going to be a pretty solid team. Plus they got a really good rotation, especially because they added Aroldis Chapman to the rotation. And they got pretty good depth in the bullpen, so they should be pretty solid this season. And number two, this is kind of tough actually. It was between the Cardinals and the Pirates, and I ended up going with the Pirates just because they have better pitching. I mean, they got A.J. Burnett, who came off a really good season, James McDonald, Wandy Rodriguez, who are all pretty solid pitchers. And then, and then their offense, Andrew McCutchen just came off another good season, and they added Russell Martin as their new catcher. And, of course, Pedro Alvarez showing some power. Garrett Jones has pretty good power. So, for the most part, their offense doesn't look as great, but their starting rotation looks good, so which is why I put them at number two. Pitching is is most of, like, if you have really good pitching, that's what's going to make you good, not the offense, you know. But then number 3, I got the St. Louis Cardinals. I mean, they have some of their guys that are aging, like Carlos Beltran and Yadier Molina. But we saw it last season. Yadier Molina's numbers did not drop, and actually Beltran actually had a really good season too. But we'll see how well they'll do in 2013. Matt Holliday came off a good season. Furcal is right now injured, so that could affect him. David Freese kind of disappointed last season. I mean, he might bounce back this year. Alan Craig showed pretty good numbers last season. And they have a pretty solid rotation, but then again, Chris Carpenter's injured, and they did lose Kyle Lowe's. So that could affect them, but they do have depth in the bullpen, so that could be a plus. Number 4, I got the Brewers. Like I said, their team doesn't look, their rotation doesn't look strong. I mean, the only big-name pitcher they got is Giovanni Gallardo. Their offense is going to be pretty similar to last season. I mean, they still got Ryan Braun and Jonathan Lucroy and Aramis Ramirez, Ricky Weeks, and of course Corey Hart will join him later on after his injury. I think their pitching is what's going to affect them throughout the season. So that's why they're number 4. And number 5, the Cubs. They're still in a developing state. I think they'll have short-term. They'll be short-term contenders. I mean, they did have a pretty solid rotation. Samardizia, Garza, Edwin Jackson. And then you also got a pretty good bullpen with Carlos Marmol and their new guy Kyuji Fujikawa, who they acquired from Japan, I believe. And they're still developing, and I think they'll end up at number 5, or at most number 4. I think they'll be contending for number 4 with the Brewers for the most part. And that's the end of the show. My name is Mo, and this is KCMO Sports. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment on our channel. Like our Facebook page, and follow us on Twitter at KCMO Sports. Thank you. Have a nice day.